All other things are, in my opinion, the same if you're traveling alone as a woman or a man. Be careful where you camp when you're wild camping, because you are alone. I was like, I can't believe it. He just leaves me alone in Pisa. Why? And after that week, I tasted that wonderful taste of traveling alone. It's amazing. And then there was this lady who opened the door, and she just yelled at us. She yelled and we jumped. And and the whole thing, I mean, they explained everything, but in Czech. But the most important thing is that I really recommend it. I think that traveling alone is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself.
Welcome to the Winging It Travel podcast with me, James Hammond, where every Monday I'll be joined by a guest to talk about their travel stories, travel tips, backpacking advice, and so much more. Right now, I'm taking the podcast on the road travelling with me. So tune in every week for short form episodes detailing all my travels alongside my Monday guest episode. Are you a backpacker, traveller, gap year student, or simply someone who loves to travel? Then this is the podcast for you. This is a casual, informative podcast designed for you to inspire you to travel. There'll be stories to tell, tips to share, and experiences to inspire. Welcome to the show. Let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode where I'm joined by Romana Hasenoehrl, who is a long-term traveller, author, writing coach, and happiness trainer. Today we're going to talk about her travels in her old Volkswagen Campervan, which she does for about 3 to 4 months a year. And I want to hear about her 9 books that she's released, and there's an upcoming 10th book if it's not been released already. I need to hear how important laughter is in our lives, and of course, some tips for any budding writers out there. So Romana, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be on your show. And yeah, I'm fine. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you. So where are you based right now?
Right now, I'm in Tyrolia, Austria. This is my second home here in the middle of the Alps. Okay. So it's pretty snowy outside, high mountains, and fresh air, cold.
And where are you from originally in Austria?
From Salzburg. That's not too far away from the place where I'm now, but as you know, that Austria is very tiny. It's like across half of the country today.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm planning to go to Austria. We are next year. So we will be checking out Austria, hopefully, quite extensively. So what tips could you give me for Austria, do you think?
Oh, gosh, so many. Depends on how much time you have. But for Austria, it's like, I love mountains. So if you love mountains, then you have to take a stop in Tyrolia, Innsbruck, because this city is amazing, especially for people who do not live in the mountains. It's a tiny, tiny city with a wonderful, nice middle-aged part. And then you step out of the door and you see that high mountains in front of you. Wow. It's just like, bam. And that's amazing. Innsbruck is, the old part is really very, very charming. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, Salzburg. Yeah. I love my hometown, I have to admit. It's tiny, middle-aged. The center is middle-aged, not every part. So we have a railway station and an airport.
Yes, you do. Yeah, I've checked.
And we have all those wonderful lakes and mountains all around. So it's beautiful. The countryside's beautiful.
Okay, and what is it like in sort of roughly March, early March?
You will have snow then. In Tyrolia, you will have snow. Yeah. Salzburg is a bit milder, so then you if you're lucky, you can have a bit like spring feeling then in Salzburg already. But I will show you around if you want.
Yes, we would love to go and visit you. And of course, any guests that come on my podcast, they will say the same thing. So that's great. And what is Austrian food? That's one thing. I'm like, a sausage maybe, but like, I don't really know much about Austrian
Yeah.
food. Like, what is that?
Oh, that's a very interesting thing because the Austrian kitchen is kind of divided, right?
Okay.
Because we were ages ago a real huge country. And when we still had kings and queens and stuff like that, Sisi, the queen, very famous one. So the eastern part of Austria, you have that, it's Böhmische Küche, means the kitchen from which is now the Czech Republic and Slovakia.
Okay.
So you have that stuff.
Yeah.
And the other part, the western part, is quite rural, meaning you have high mountains and steep valleys and farmers and people living from very little. So from that tradition, another kitchen developed. If you want to have it in a nutshell, one might say that the Austrian kitchen is a very meaty one.
Okay.
And me being a vegetarian for
over
35 years now, I can tell you stories like in the 80s. You went to a restaurant and you said, I don't eat meat, and they gave you a salad because that was the only choice.
Yeah. But now it's okay?
It's much better because we have a Mediterranean influence, very strong one. I mean, the most famous dish is the Wiener Schnitzel. They even sing in that movie, The Sound of Music. They even sing about it. The schnitzel with noodles and crisp apple strudels. And the apple strudel, that's one of those, people think it's a dessert. It's like like a cake with apples. But in Austria, in the farmer's kitchen, you ate something like that for a main dish.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's very interesting that we have very many sweet dishes we used to have for a main dish, like Kaiserschmarrn, which is like a very destroyed crepe.
Okay.
That's the Austrian kitchen. But I have to admit, as with that vegetarian lifestyle of mine, I always tended more to the Mediterranean kitchen, like pasta. You could get along with that for decades.
Okay. And what about a top tip for coffee? What city does the best coffee, or what town maybe does the best coffee, do you think, in Austria?
Oh, gosh. I mean, Vienna is famous for its coffee places.
Yeah.
Because they are really wonderful. You should try some of them. The very old-fashioned, over 200-year-old coffee places.
Yeah.
I have to admit that, that Trieste in Italy was once Austrian. So they share a great coffee tradition. And I have to admit, but we have to be, don't say that out loud, they have the nicer coffee places here.
Well, if it's the truth, it's the truth.
We have still two very old traditional coffee places in Salzburg as well. And you have that, what you really imagine, like those waiters in a suit and serving the coffee on little silver like plates, and it's I love it.
Oh wow, I cannot wait to get to Austria. Especially Vienna. Vienna was like a city that we were definitely going to prioritize, but I'm intrigued by the other parts like Salzburg, Innsbruck and all that, so that's great. I had one person come on the podcast and claim, and I think I left it in the podcast as well, so it's on record, that he said that Turkish pizza was better than Italian pizza.
Oh my God.
And as soon as he said it, he regretted it. He asked me to take it out, but I was like, nah, that's staying in. So no comeback from that. No one's kicked off about that. So it's all been good. Okay, to travel, you do quite a lot of van life, or van travel, should we say. And I want to know first, when did travel first come into your life? Like, do you remember when you're younger, any trips, or was there one trip in particular that sort of piqued your interest in travel? How did that start?
Oh, that was an amazing story. I was born to a farmer's family. So traveling was not what we did. So you were told that you stay home and work. That's the normal way of life. So as I was very, very good in school when I was 13, my English teacher convinced my parents to let me travel to the UK.
Oh.
For 2 weeks into summer holidays to improve my English.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I still remember this trip so very well because I was, first of all, overwhelmed that I could do that. And she really had some hard work to do to convince my parents. I was really like, oh my God, I'm traveling. And I mean, 13 and traveling alone. I mean, in a group, but you're still a kid. And from at that day, I've never been alone to the city. So we lived in a little village on the edge of the city. I've never been to the city alone by bus. So then this was the first huge trip. And I remember that, first of all, I was so happy. And then a week before the whole thing started, I got so nervous. I started praying. Oh, dear Lord, could you please make my best friend Horst go? I don't want anymore. But the Lord didn't listen. So I went to England, northern England, to Burnley, which is next to Manchester.
Wow. That's way up north. Yes, that's a random place to go.
The family was wonderful. And I remember one trip we did there, we visited the Bronte country, and I was a huge fan of Wuthering Heights then. So being there, I was like, oh my God. And this, I still get goosebumps when I talk about it. Oh my God.
Good. That's good.
And this like impressed me so much that whenever I come back to Britain, I always go there to Bronte country.
Oh, do you? Oh, okay. Yeah. I've never been.
I've been there several times, and it changed a lot, of course, because it got very touristic. You can do all those tours and stuff. But still, if you like walk away from that museum part and you just walk cross country, you can imagine how that novel like was created. It's wonderful. And this is how the whole wish for traveling, the urge for traveling started, because I was so young and got back and I knew, hey, I can do it. I did it. I went there. I went to England all by myself. Oh my God. Came back home and said, I want to go again. And my parents just panicked because they thought it's done, you know, let her go and then she'll be healed. So yeah, I came back to Great Britain in 2 years after, and then that huge wish inside myself started to grow. I want to go to America. I was like, America. So when I was 17, then I did my first trip to the US. It was amazing. It was the end of the 80s. No cell phones, no computer, no booking.com, stuff like that. You really had to do the things when you came there, right? Ask people, try to check your things.
Yeah.
Couldn't call your parents. That was much too expensive. So
yeah.
And I still, that's one thing I now understand. They were back home and they didn't hear from me for 3 weeks. That must be hell. Of course, at that age, I didn't care.
Well, I think if your parents are not travelers themselves, then the thought of you doing something that they've not even done, it must be terrifying, because they're not only doing something that they probably don't understand that much, but you actually are on your own and their child is away and you're not hearing from them for about 3 or 4 weeks. Like if they were travelers themselves and they'd done that thing when they were that age, they might have a bit more understanding. But yeah, there must have been a totally alien concept.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it.
Did you have any siblings?
Yes, I have a sister. She's
Yeah.
4 years younger, and she does not travel.
Okay. So
And
they
she
had that.
says she has 3 kids, so you want to go for summer vacation, but she always says she doesn't go any farther than 1.5 hours drive.
Is that still Austria?
Yeah, that's still Austria.
Okay.
I guess she went to Italy twice,
Right.
but that was for her, it was a nightmare.
What would she say is the reason that she doesn't like travel or doesn't go traveling, do you think?
We talked about that a lot. And she doesn't put it that way. She goes more that direction, saying, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you just stay back home?
Yeah.
What's your problem? Why do you have to do that?" And especially because I'm traveling by myself a lot. That started in 2009. That was a very, very helpful situation with a boyfriend of mine. So to this time, I really traveled with my boyfriends like everybody does, right?
Yeah.
And I remember we bought that Volkswagen campervan, and it turned 37 this year. I got a birthday card from my mechanic.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. I love that stuff. So we went to Tuscany.
Lovely.
I've been to Tuscany several times by motorbike, and I loved it, and I wanted to show it to him because he's never been there and stuff like that. So we went there by the Volkswagen campervan, and in Pisa, I remember that situation so well. That boyfriend of mine said, "Hey, listen, I grabbed my bicycle now. I'm riding to Assisi with the bicycle. I mean, that's a 7 days ride."
Wow.
And I said, "You doing what?" And he said, "Yeah, I just need some time off." And I was like, "What?" and he was gone. Not, no fight, not being mad at each other or something.
Yeah.
He just said he needs some time. And I was there all alone with that, for me, very new car. It was the new car, but you have to get used to all that stuff. I was like, I can't believe it. He just leaves me alone in Pisa. Why? And after that week, I tasted that wonderful taste of traveling alone. It's amazing. It's so wonderful. And
I was then going to ask, did you learn a lot of lessons from maybe those early trips to the one you're talking about now about traveling? Did you learn, all the basic skills of like how to speak to someone randomly, how to find your way to your accommodation, how to go and get food, where to find stuff? Like, did you learn all these skills from
I had
early on?
I had to learn a lot. Yeah. One of the most interesting things was, for example, that I hated it to go for dinner by myself.
Okay.
I couldn't do that.
Oh, wow.
And now when I think back, I think, why? I mean, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah.
In these days, it was a real challenge for me. And so what do I take with me? Like a book or a newspaper, or you have something to hide. And now I think it's the most normal thing in the world. That was one thing I had to learn. And the other was, and that took me much longer, not to overdo myself with I started with long-term traveling in 2015. So being away in the camper van for 2 or 3 months. And what always happened to me, I was riding the car and looking at the map, because I hate navigation systems. So looking at the map and going there, it's cool, and go. And then all of a sudden, the campground you wanted to go to is closed already. So I didn't check those things. You could check them on your phone or in the internet. But honestly, I got my first smartphone in 2019. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't need that crap.
Yeah.
So what always happened, very often, then I've been driving for 8 or 9 hours, freaking tired, not having eaten, and then it's getting dark and you are in the middle of nowhere and don't know where to go. And this feeling of absolute desperation, that's awful. And I had to find a way to be clear with myself, when is my strength at its peak, and then it's good to stop. The wonderful thing is that I got a dog in 2017, and now she tells me. So because the dog doesn't play that game with you, right? After 9 hours in the car, she says, "Hey, are you completely
crazy?" What breed of dog is your dog?
It's a Chihuahua.
Oh wow! Okay, super small,
very tiny Chihuahua.
Very cozy there.
Yes, it's like that Campervan is a real small one, and I wanted a dog for a long time, but I always said to myself, hey, I mean, imagine yourself with a German Shepherd and it's raining outside. You don't want to think about that.
We want a Bernese. So imagine a Bernese dog, like, they're huge, aren't they? And then they get wet and muddy and it comes in your camper van. That'd be a nightmare.
Oh my God. My nephew one day came up to me and said they have Chihuahuas at the shelter, the dog shelter. They still babies and they took them away from some ugly guy. So why don't you want to save one of them? And I thought, a Chihuahua, oh my God, I have to get some pink nail polish or stuff like that. I'm really happy. Didn't expect that these dogs are so much fun and so strong in their will. Let's put it that way.
A lot of dogs are, aren't they? Yeah. I think even smaller dogs can be like that, definitely, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so in your camper van, how often do you travel in your camper van per year? And how do you decide where to go?
Normally 2 times. I mean, it depends on how long I'm on the road. For example, in 2019, I decided I want to try that to head off and not making a decision when to come back or where to go, just let life happen.
Day to day.
Yeah. And then I quit my apartment, so I had no apartment to come back to. That was done.
Yeah.
And that was a cool experiment to know that I cannot just turn around and go back home because there is no home anymore.
Yeah.
So in this year, of course, I just did one trip, which brought me, oh my God, in so many countries. I started with Switzerland, Luxembourg, France, Spain, Portugal. So the whole European.
Wow. How long was that for?
4 months.
Wow, 4 months. Yeah. That's so great.
And with all that time, being somewhere and realizing, oh my God, it's magic here. I just stay for 3 weeks. Because no one cares. That's wonderful. Not being driven by, I have to do this, right? Because it's a trip and I want to see stuff. And, that was a very, very a wonderful magic experience for me, because I've been traveling Europe a lot when I was very young with my motorbike. And I always had this, okay, we have to do this mountain and this road and this city and this, because you want to see everything.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's getting stressful.
I guess it's like a bit of anxiety, isn't there? I can't miss that place. I've got to do this place. Yeah. I talked about this a little bit about this on my podcast, about this mentality of, or lifestyle of having slow travel. But there's real life things that can affect that. Having a job, for example, that you have to be on a laptop 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, for example, that will affect it. And you have an apartment, so you have to pay rent, and if you're paying rent for somewhere you don't live, what's the point? So you have to like factor that in. So there's all these factors that come in that kind of stops people from really relaxing on their trips. And like you say, it can get stressful and a bit anxiety driven if you're pushed for time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I realized that when I went to Thailand the first time, because I was invited to a wedding there. A friend of mine married.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to travel Asia. I have to admit, I never wanted that. I don't know why. I thought it's dirty and crowded and points. Isn't that awful?
Yeah.
So I went to Thailand and I had 3 weeks. But for me, the only point I needed to be at was that wedding date. And so there was no stress for me. I went to Bangkok, I liked it there, and I stayed for 10 days. So, and after the wedding, I thought, Bangkok was so cool, let's go back there. And when I came home, all people asked, you've been to Thailand, did you see this? I sat there, no. Bangkok, 2 weeks, what did you do there? I didn't even leave Banglamphu, the part. I didn't leave it. I just stayed there.
Yeah.
There were so many nice bars and they did live music. I loved singing, so I sang every evening in another bar. They like let me get on stage and do my stuff.
Hey, if you like it, like why not carry on? Yeah. That's amazing. Like the fact that you are not worried about staying in Bangkok for 2 weeks. I love Bangkok. I could stay there for 2 weeks, easy. But I remember my Bangkok story, like it's a bit like yours, but there's a different ending. So we were there for a week, 7 days. And me and my friend were loving it, like almost out every night, meeting loads of people, seeing all the sights in Bangkok. And we almost got to the 7th day and we're like, we have to leave. We got to go and see like the rest of Southeast Asia because we can't just stay in Bangkok for 3 months. And we had to like force ourselves to book a bus and go to Cambodia. But if I'm honest, we could have stayed for another week easy, just checking it out. We loved it that much. So unfortunately, like we had a date and a place to get to and we did have to get a move on. But yeah, Bangkok was a great experience for us. So for your camper van, do you have any sort of like rules? And what I mean by this is like you mentioned earlier about traveling too much, doing too much. So now if you're driving from one place to another, do you have rules like, well, early, I'll get up early and I'll drive early so you arrive early and you're not like driving in the dark late in the evening? My equivalent would be like nowadays I wouldn't even entertain overnight buses because I can't sleep on them. So the next day I'll have lack of sleep, I'll be tired, and I won't want to do anything. And I see it as a wasted day. So it's like one little rule I have. But yeah, do you have any rules for your camper van?
I have to admit that the rules are made mainly by the weather because I have no aircon on it. Yeah. And I wouldn't care about that, but the dog does. So if we have very, very hot days, for example, when was that? There was summer 2017 when I took the dog with me the first time. We had 40 degrees on the Atlantic coast in France already in June.
Wow.
And I came there and I realized, first of all, we cannot stay. That's no good at all.
Yeah.
And second, from now on, I really have to take that early morning hours for driving. And then, so I really made dog decisions. I took the map and like a weather app, and I took a look where it's under 30 degrees. And that was Ile de Ré in the Atlantic. I love that place, and I would have never gone there because it's kind of a very fashionable place. They say that all the rich French people go there. So I would have never chosen it, but it said on the map, here it's 28 and everywhere else it's over 30. I go there and I love it. So I love those coincidences that just happen. But the rules are, for me, it's like, Of course, if I stay on a campground, it has to be a dog-friendly one. Otherwise, you don't like that, right? I love staying, like I did, for example, in Scotland, where it's allowed to just stay somewhere.
Oh, wild camp. Yeah. That's going to be another question of mine. Do you wild camp? But I guess that depends on the country, doesn't it?
Yes, because I have to admit, I don't do it where they say they don't want it. Why should I do that if people say we don't want it here and they put up signs and I don't. So, but in Scotland, for example, I loved it. And my rule there is every third day, go to a campsite, take a shower. That's what people do, because it's a small car. I don't have a shower on board, but I don't have other rules. No.
Okay, they're good rules. I like them. Okay. We're going to talk about solo travel. If you've got any tips for women, just quickly back to your boyfriend. Did he come back in Italy?
We met in Assisi. Yeah.
Yeah, you did meet there.
And we met there, and I had to thank him.
Yes, of course.
Because he opened a complete new life for me. First of all, trusting that car.
Yeah.
Old cars, they have their own character. Things can break, and I had so many adventures with that car that now I'm getting better and better in repairing small stuff by myself.
Oh, good. That's great.
My mechanic is a wonderful guy. He teaches me stuff.
Yeah.
So, for example, if there is something where he thinks that might break, we just lie under the car. I take my camera and he shows me how to fix this and this. And then I have that how-to video.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And sometimes it's not possible. For example, in Portugal, once a fuel hose broke, and it was dripping and smelling, and I thought, oh my God, that you have that in your fantasy. Some guy goes by and throws away his cigarette and whoosh. So I wanted to change that. It was just a tiny part. You could fix it, but that was so rusted. I couldn't manage it by myself. But nevertheless, he gave me a how-to per WhatsApp call, and if I'd been strong enough, I could have done it. But so I had to get to the garage, and they repaired it.
Okay. Yeah. Cheeky question before we go to solo travel. Very quick question on what you're saying. So we are doing a road trip next summer with our campervan here in Canada and US. We're going to drive around. We don't know barely anything about cars. So what are the 2 or 3 things that we should definitely know how to fix or change on the car?
Is it a diesel or a
normal petrol? Yeah.
Okay. And how old is it?
2000, so it's 20
that's not
22 23 years old. Yeah,
because what I would recommend with a car that age is that you really ask a friend or professional what are the typical things that break.
Yeah,
that's what I did. For example, I can change my petrol pump. Yeah, because for the Volkswagen, one knows that this part breaks quite often. Yeah. Meaning it doesn't do that every year, but every 10 years. So I have, these are so tiny, like pencil sharpens. So I have one extra, a new one with me. Yeah. And when the car doesn't work anymore, then I check, is the thingy getting some petrol? And if not, I just put the new part in. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. Or, for example, what I always carry with me is how do you call that thingy where the smoke?
I can see what you're doing. For people listening, there's hand gestures. I'm the worst of cars. I'm not going to know. But you mean like the pipe for the exhaust, right?
Yeah. Right.
Do you have like a spare one maybe? Or
none, not that, but there exist repair kits.
Okay. So if it's a hole in the exhaust, You can
Yes.
repair the
And
whole.
with a 22-year-old car like yours is, I would invest in something like that.
Okay.
Because
Right.
those things, they tend to break on long trips. They love to do it on long trips and not back home.
Yeah.
And then you hear it. And of course, it's not the worst thing that can happen, but it's not very good if there is a hole. So you repair that. That's like like paste. You paste it around it, and then it dries, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Stuff like that. Or I always carry like those large black tapes
Yeah, duct
with
tape.
me. Yeah, because they say that can fix anything. Anything.
And of course, YouTube. That's a easy, helpful tip these days. Unlike, I don't know, pre-YouTube, 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. I guess that would have been asking someone, but now you could maybe research it on YouTube. That's a handy tool to have. Okay, there's some good tips. We'll bear that in mind. I did ask the mechanic, I think a few months ago, we had a service in the car, and I said to him, so 21 years old, you just done a service on it. Do you think we could drive this across Canada? He's like, yeah, like a normal car. He said, yeah, like there could be external things that happen that you can't control. But he said the car as it is now, he says, if you look after it, I don't see why not. So I'm like, oh, he seems to think it's okay. But you got to bear in mind, Canada's huge, right? That if we're going west to east, that is thousands of kilometers.
I'd
Huge.
love to come over with my old car.
Yes, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
I'd love to do that because they have a ferry. I mean, a huge ship from Hamburg to Halifax.
Oh, that's where we're going to finish. Yeah.
You can ship it, and it doesn't cost a fortune. It's just 1,800 euros.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you stay long, then it's really better than renting a camper.
Yes, the gas and petrol is cheaper in Canada, and especially if you go to the US, even cheaper if you go south. Yeah. So you would save money technically, I guess, on those like petrol costs. But yeah, that's a good tip maybe for someone in Europe if they want to drive across in their own van. That's awesome. Okay, solo travel. Do you have any tips for female solo travelers from what you've learned on your trips?
Yeah, many. The first thing is that many female who are traveling alone, and I myself was like that, are very proud of doing that. So if people, especially men, ask you, are you traveling alone? You say, yes.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that is dangerous, but it can be like pulling your nerves, because some men, and this still is the case, they then think you need help or you need company. So then you'll never get rid of them, as cruel as this sounds. And
no, fair point.
I now have that technique that I take my time to realize which energy is going on here.
Yeah.
And if I realize, oh, that's one of these guys, then I say, at the moment I'm traveling alone, yes, but my husband will meet me in 4 days.
Yeah, that's a good good tip.
It's done. I know that sounds so simple, but I had to find that out. All other things are, in my opinion, the same if you're traveling alone as a woman or a man. Be careful where you camp when you're wild camping, because you are alone. And then you don't have that second pair of ears or eyes that people have when they are two of them, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, when I was traveling Scotland, of course, I put a large sign on the dashboard which says drive left, because we are not used to that, right?
Yeah.
And that worked out for 4 weeks. And after 4 weeks, I was staying overnight at one of those lochs.
Yeah.
Amazing. Got up in the morning, thought that I don't need a coffee, hopped into the car, whoosh, I was on the right-hand side.
I see. Yeah.
So if you have someone with you, he or she might have said, hey, drive left. So you have to be a bit more careful about new situations because you are the only one in charge. And that means you need more rest or more coffee, whatever your decision is. But that's the thing. I would recommend to trust the gut instinct you have. If you go somewhere and you think, gosh, I don't like it here, then leave.
Yes, you're
Don't
right.
discuss it with yourself, just leave. Because if you are traveling with someone else, you would discuss it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's two of you. And being alone, it's just... But the most important thing is that I really recommend it. I think that traveling alone is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself.
Yeah, I saw a quote, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. I like it because I do agree with it. I'll tell you, someone said, you never really travelled until you travelled solo. Now, technically, if you're going technicality of the words, it's not true because you can travel with your friend forever, and that's technically traveling. But obviously the meaning behind it is traveling solo gives you experiences and life skills that probably you wouldn't learn with someone else. And I do agree that going solo with your male or female, I think you do learn a lot. I think it's worth doing at least once in your lifetime, I think. And I went to Greece for 2 weeks just now on my own. I've not done that solo travel on my own for a period of time. Must have been since 2014, I think, when I was in South America. So it was good to get back on that solo trail, and I learned a few things about myself, really, and a few things about travel that is interesting. I'll give you an example. I'll see what you think about this. My travel anxiety comes, and this might sound a bit weird, right? I love exploring all day. So let's say I arrived in one of the islands in Greece. I was up at, 7, half 7. Went out to a local place for breakfast and coffee. I was like, right, I'm going to go see this, walk around, or go and have another coffee in a local cafe. And I'm out all day. So I get back in the evening, maybe let's say 7 p.m. But then my anxiety kicks in because then I think I should be doing something in the evening as well because I'm not going to experience travel in the evening. I've done it a whole day. I've walked 15,000 steps. I've spoke to local people, seen some sights, seen some great stuff. But then anxiety is like, I should be out again in the evening. But actually, if I analyze myself, that's not a priority for me deep down, but I feel bad not going out in the nighttime. What do you think about that?
That's an interesting question. I think that for me, it's quite different because nowadays I work when I travel. I'm doing that for 10 years now. Meaning that I'm doing my stuff for clients. I'm a writer, and I'm a professional SEO writer, so search engine optimization.
Yeah.
So that is the main part where the money comes in, and that means still when I'm traveling, I have a day off here and a day off there, and I want to do some sightseeing, of course, but in between I have to do my normal work days. And so that makes the decision quite simple, right? I have my day off, I do stuff, and then I'm back there in the camper when it's raining or outside when it's nice, and have my computer, write my text, send my invoices, which is the most important part when you travel.
Yeah, you need them.
And I think that I had different travel phases all my life. So between 20 and 30, I was that motorcycle enthusiast. So we went all through Europe by motorbike, a little gang, 2 guys and me, a gang. And so we always, as we were students then, we had the whole September, but university hasn't started yet. So all 3 of us were cabbies. We were cab drivers. Financing our university studies by cab driving. And the summer season in Salzburg is really good. So we did 2 months of like working like hell and then 1 month off.
Yeah.
And so then we had that all together, like you have the motorbike, you are exhausted in the evening. Yeah, you maybe go for one beer, but then you're knocked out.
Yeah.
And so that was this phase. And then I started skydiving when I was 30.
Oh, wow.
I listened to one of your podcasts when you talked about skydiving, and I went mentally back to that time within a second.
I've got some questions about skydiving coming up, I think. But,
oh my God. I was like, oh, they're talking about being scared of the height and wow.
I love skydiving. I love it.
Oh,
I can't wait to the next one. Yeah.
It's wonderful. So I did 11 years of intensive skydiving experiences and over 400 jumps, which isn't much for that amount of time.
Okay.
But I did the best you can do because it's quite expensive, the whole thing.
Yeah, I've looked into it. Yeah, it's actually quite expensive.
Yeah. And so that was a complete different traveling style then, because wherever we went, you had that rig with you, and you wanted to do your skydives. So, and that in Sardinia, I guess that's the right name. I went a lot to Spain, to Empuria Brava, on Costa Brava, Italy, Czech Republic. So skydiving all over it was. So then that was different. And now it's that long-term traveling phase where I don't have that anxiety, because I know next time I'm traveling, I will start in August and I can come back whenever I want. And if it's getting Christmas, who cares? So,
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's the time constraint. Because I had 2 weeks and I had a flight back to London. So I guess I felt like if I wasn't going out in the evening, like speaking to locals, having a beer, whatever, I felt like I was missing out. And there was one night that was funny. I was like, "Come on, James, it's weird," because I'd go out for dinner to a local restaurant. So like I'd be speaking, but I'd maybe have dinner. But I was solo traveling, so I did it by myself, and then probably just go home. But one evening I had dinner. I was like, "No, go on, let's go for a beer at the local place that I know on this island." And I went there, and there's no one in there. I was like, "Oh, there's actually no one to talk to." So the whole point was to go out, have a beer, and mingle with the locals, but there was no one there. So I had the beer, which was fine, but I guess that justified me not always going out in the evening thinking that I'm missing something, because actually, especially in the off season in Greece, there's no tourist. Like the locals just close up early. So it's quite an interesting lesson that I learned. Okay, so I've got a question here. What is the purpose of travel, do you think?
The purpose of traveling is to explore yourself. Of course, you explore nature, you explore other countries, you do all that. But I think deep inside, it's all about exploring oneself, finding out where are my borders, how far can I go, what do I not like, what do I like, how does it feel when, especially if you are an adventurous person like I am. I always made, for example, a philosophy out of skydiving, because there were so many different feelings coming with it. And that thinking of why do I feel this here and this there? And it's like, and all skydivers who are getting older, they say that, okay, if we are 20 or 30, we don't talk about feelings. But looking back now, we say, oh my God, we were so close as a group, because the experience is so deep going on an emotional level. And I think that's with traveling. It's all about that. I have special smells or noises from the car, for example, where I'm getting deep feelings. So that Volkswagen sound is a very special sound, If it's warm, the engine is warm, and you go and it does that sound, I feel so cozy. That's like an old childhood feeling, like you nestle in that seat and you oh. I could go forever.
That's a good purpose. Yeah, I like asking that question because it's different for every person. No answer the same. It's quite a cool question. So I'm going to dive into. That's a good pun. I did not mean that. I was going to dive into your skydiving and your books and your writing coaching and also the happiness and the mentality towards the end before some questions. So skydiving, I do love it. It's the one thing when you analyze people's like travels and they're either like diving in water or they're skiing or they're bungee jumping. I guess mine is heights. So I would love to do. I've done 2 skydives. I'd love to do paragliding, hang gliding. There on my list. Somewhere around the world. So how did you get into skydiving? I guess you must have done a tandem dive first and then thought, I'd like to do this one myself.
I didn't.
God.
Oh, my skydiving story fills an evening. All skydivers love it. No, there was. I grew up next to the airport in Salzburg, which was an airfield in these days, and they did skydiving there. Nowadays, the airport got that big; it's not allowed anymore to jump next to the airfield. But in these days, that was the case. So we, as kids, we went there by bicycle, like watching those heroes. No one would dare to talk to those skydivers because they were. And I told about that experience. My best friend or my oldest friend. Before I became 30. And he thought that I still have the urge to skydive because I said, when I was a kid, I wanted to do that. But my mom said, that's so expensive. We are not rich enough to do that. And that thing was done for me. I never asked again or thought about it again. So I told him that. And he then organized a trip to the Czech Republic for the whole course, the skydiving course, plus 3 jumps.
Okay.
And they gave it to me as a birthday present for my 30th birthday, 3 friends of mine. And I said, I was like, what? You want to kill me? You want to get rid of me? I go there, but you have to do it too. I wouldn't do that. I mean, okay, so we went there. And one very nice guy speaking German, he had organized the whole thing. But what we didn't know was that, first of all, they didn't do tandem jumps to just let you know how it is. They put you on automatic openings, put you on that plane, which was an Antonov AN2, which is the largest single engine plane you have. And then there was this lady who opened the door and she just yelled at us. She yelled and we jumped. And, and the whole thing, I mean, they explained everything, but in Czech. And the guy who had organized it, he translated. But that felt like, okay, there in front, there was a guy talking and he talked about 20 minutes. And then that German-speaking guy turned around and he said 2 sentences. I had that strong feeling that something must be missing.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, so we did that first 3 jumps with the automatic opening thing from 800 meters, which isn't very high.
So that means that the parachute just opens straight away?
Yes, that's like a blink you in the airplane.
Yeah.
You have a little rope which breaks then, but it pulls out the parachute.
Yeah, okay.
And after those 3 jumps, they put us into real gear and we had to do that. I mean, they showed it how to, but not with a teacher in the air, which they do nowadays. You have 2 teachers in the air who stabilize you and help you and do this. I've never seen a teacher up there.
Wow.
Whenever I tell that story to skydiving people in Austria, Germany, they are like, what? But we thought that's the way to do it. Nobody told us.
So your training was basically 3 jumps out with an automatic chute coming out. So you are literally jumping out and the parachute is done. You're just gliding down. So that's your landing, if you like. And then straight after that, full skydive suit on. They show you some videos or tell you how it's done, and you're just going to jump out of a plane.
Yeah, they put us on the ground, and we had to do that movement, right? Because you have to lie in the air in that frog position with all 4. And then when you want to open your parachute, you have to do a special movement with your arms. Otherwise, you start to twist. And you had to train that. Yeah. You have to move your arms, in the contra direction. Otherwise, you would start spinning.
I didn't know that.
So we had to train that on the ground, of course, but nobody could tell what we are doing up there.
Wow. What was that first jump like? You done your 3 first jumps, the automatic parachute. What was the first one after that? What was that like?
First of all, I felt much better because I knew the parachute was one you could handle better.
Okay.
The first 3 jumps were with a round canopy.
Yeah.
And you have very limited possibilities to like move it.
Okay.
So you are most, the wind does the stuff, and I don't like that. I want to make my decisions. So I was happy about that parachute. And of course you are nervous. I remember that after the landing, this feeling, okay, I did it. I could run. I'm there. I did it on my own. When I came home after that weekend, I thought I can do everything in life. Nothing can stop me. You're so pumped with adrenaline and this knowledge that you did something really special.
Yeah, that would give you that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'd love to look into that in the future. Okay, that's great. And we're going to go to your books and being an author. You've written 9 books. I think I read there was 10th book on the way. I'm not sure if that's been finished and released, but can you tell the listeners, what do you write about? What is in your books?
Yeah, what's in my books? So I started with non-fictional books in 2013. And that was a garden book.
Oh.
So my first book was a garden book. The story behind it is very simple. I got fired from one day to the other after 17 years in the same company. And I couldn't find another job. I've been working for the biggest broadcasting company in Austria. And as we are a tiny country, there were no other chances. I was over 40. People told me you have no chance in that industry, so forget it. I always loved writing. I've been writing a lot for magazines and newspapers as a freelancer always. That never was my main job.
Okay.
And then I sat there and I was like desperate and thinking, gosh. So first of all, I founded my own company because I couldn't find a job and I thought I have to do something.
Yeah.
So let's play self-employed now. That's what I thought. And then my aunt came up to me because I was really desperate. I mean, nowadays I think it was the most funniest situation in life, but it wasn't in the moment. And she came up and said, "Why don't you write a book now? I mean, you've got time now."
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, she's so right. I'm a time millionaire. I mean, I'm broke, but I'm a time millionaire. So, okay. So then I thought about what, and I love gardening. My grandma taught me a lot about gardening. So I wrote a book for people who are broke and don't have a garden and not all that expensive pot stuff and thingies, but just old shopping bags. Fill them with earth and grow in there. This idea was so new and so funny in 2013 that I immediately found a publisher, which is a lucky situation as a new author.
Yeah.
So I wrote 12 emails to Austrian publishers, and 2 of them wanted me. And I was in the situation that I could make a decision which one I like better.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a wise choice. I'm very happy, still very happy. I took that choice, and they were overwhelmed with what I delivered. They loved me, and that's good if the publisher loves you.
Yeah.
And so they came up to me with another book project. They said, because they are a publishing company which is specialized on those handicraft stuff, and they wanted me to write a book about coloring your textiles, clothes, and wool and stuff with plants, not industrial colors, but natural colors.
Yeah.
And they said, do you know someone who does that, who could show you everything and you write it? I said, yeah, I know. My aunt does that. So she, who had the original idea, why don't you become a writer? With her, I did the second book.
That's great.
That was, they were so happy with that. They even sold the license, and it got published in Great Britain.
Oh.
In English. So I was like, oh God.
What's the name of the book?
That's Natural Dyeing. Yeah. And it's Schiffer is the publisher. Yeah. The same Austrian publisher, they said, okay, why don't you do another book like that with old techniques of printing techniques. I did that.
Yeah.
So that was book number 4. Then a friend of mine came up. She founded the first co-working space in Salzburg and said, hey, I'd love to write a book of how to manage a co-working space. Would you like to support me? So we did that book. And then another friend came up, and then I said, so ladies and gentlemen, stop it now. I have to do my own projects again. Yeah. These were lovely projects, and it's good to have all that experiences, but I then wanted to write my first novel. And that idea for that first novel was in my brain from the first day on. I was long-term traveling with my camper. Because I got those ideas of, how you call that? If you're traveling alone, there is always a moment, right, when you really ask yourself, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know it. And for me, that was very new, because that was 2015. It was the first time I didn't have an end date for my traveling.
Yeah.
I could go as long as I want. And after 5 days, I got those feelings, and I thought, that can't be true. I mean, I just fulfilled a life dream of mine. And here I sit, could cry my eyes out, and I'm just desperate. So luckily I met another traveler who travels alone as well. And I really admire him very much. He's in the wheelchair and travels alone. So that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And I told him about those feelings, and he said, you've got the travel blues. That's normal. And what?
Yeah, what does that mean?
So then in my brain, that story started. That blues became a real person and started to visit me once in a while, the traveling blues. And so I wrote that first novel about this guy, the traveling blues, and it's called Traveling with the Blues.
Okay.
And that was a real wish of mine to put those travel stories of 4 years all together in a novel with many true stories, but many novel stories as well. Came back and wrote the next book and the next one, and the next 2 books were I'm an astrologer as well. That always was a hobby of mine. I never thought that this would be part of my company once. But now I wrote 2 cookbooks, astrological cookbooks, meaning from Aries to Pisces, you get 4 dishes per sign with a
Oh, wow.
cocktail. And the first part was, people loved it. And so I decided to write a second one where we travel around the world. So we find countries that suit the energy of each sign. For example, Aries, the adventurous sign, you would grab a fire and ice country, which would be Iceland or Chile. And the second part just got delivered one day before Christmas.
Oh, wow.
It's here, yeah.
Okay, next question is going to be, any tips for someone writing their first book?
I love to do that. First of all, visit my course, or at least my webinar, because that is the thing that most writers are confronted with. You have a great idea, you start, and then you get stuck and you don't find a way out of that situation. And that is normal, but you need someone to guide you. In my, I created kind of a 7 steps program where I pick people on whatever part of the path they are.
Yeah.
And the first thing we do, as funny as it might sound, is we create a cover for each book, because it brings you into in the situation. You have to do a little bit of research, right? How do other covers look like who have the same topic?
Yeah.
And then you visualize it. You visualize it like a vision board. And you have your name on it, you have the title, you have the full book cover, and you have the back cover where you write why people should read this book.
Okay.
And when you've done that, this is like a lighthouse. You always see it, and there will be bad times and stormy times and good times and rough times, but you always have that lighthouse there.
Yeah.
There, the cover exists. And if you find a publisher, of course, they will do a complete new cover. They never will take what you offer them, I can promise you. But you had it already and you can present it. So that's the first step we do in the program. And then the other thing is a lot about mindset. This whole stuff of, am I good enough? Will anybody read my book? I know this, it's exhausting. It destroys your will and your power and your passion. The thing is, when you are a writer, I mean, I'm not talking about the real well-known ones, like, I don't know, John Irving, William Faulkner, okay?
Yeah.
If you're not in that top level, and not many of us will get there, you will never, ever hear from anybody if they liked your book. I mean, how many readers write a nice letter? Dear author, I'm so happy with your book. Nobody does that. So all you get is maybe on Amazon some testimonials, reviews, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't even trust them. So maybe it's just someone who hates you since you were 5. For example, for Traveling with the Blues, I got one email from a person, a lady, and she said, this book helped me so much because I always wanted to travel by myself. I was scared and I had all the thoughts you describe here, but you nevertheless did it, so I can do it as well. And I thought, that's one person. And if I could help her, if I could like give her this treasure, that's enough. If you follow a mindset like this, right, then you don't doubt. I for example, have one-to-one students as well. So they come up with a book project and I grab their hand and we walk together. So one of them, he just sent me his draft.
Yeah.
And we are now at that point where we will see if he finds a publisher or not.
Wow.
And I told him, listen, I like your book. I mean, it's still a raw diamond. You still have to do some work on it, right?
Yeah.
But before we do that, we have to find out, is a publisher interested? And I tell you one thing, if we don't find one, we don't stop here.
No.
Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you need someone who tells you this,
yeah,
who supports you with all power and strength. And he says, yeah, but I'm still convinced we'll find a publisher. And I said, okie dokie, good. I know, if not, there are other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Independent publishing nowadays is not a problem.
Yeah.
It's easy going.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first thing for newborn authors, as I call them, is make that cover and convince yourself there will be at least one person out there who loves the book.
Yeah.
And if I've written it just for that one person, hey, holy, why not? And there will be more, but we never know. Will we hear of them or not?
Yeah, that is true. It's a bit like podcasting, actually, to an extent. You don't really hear many people. But also, you're right about not knowing what next steps are. I have no idea what I do next. So it's good to know that you offer that sort of service where you can go step by step, and this is what happens next, this is what we do next. And that's pretty cool for new authors or new writers who have no idea of the process.
Yeah, we also do structuring work, for example, to find out your perfect structure. We do roadmaps, so learn how to deal with deadlines, because if there's a publisher or not, you need a deadline. Otherwise, it takes you 20 years to finish it.
True.
So,
yeah, absolutely right.
We work with that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, at the end of the 8 weeks program, and of course in the webinars, I talk about that topic as well. And that's the topic where most questions come up. We talk about, and how do I look for a publisher? How does that work? Right? That is, what's the process all about? And what if, when do I decide I've waited long enough and I go into self-publishing, and how does that work? So we talk about all that technical stuff. And I have to admit that with my first book, I took a course as well.
Okay.
And that course was on a German platform. The course doesn't exist any longer, which is a pity. But they were just talking about publishing non-fictional books.
Yeah.
And they taught us simple technical things like how to write an email to a publisher. How should that be written so you have success?
Yeah.
How should your first draft look like? Bam, 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 bam. And I followed each and every step and had a publisher within a few weeks.
There you go.
So
yeah,
I think that is still a good procedure. And nowadays, of course, we can talk about platforms where you can sell your book if you don't find a publisher, and you say, oh, Amazon or whatever. I mean, Amazon is just one possibility.
Yeah.
Oh, you get to come to my webinar.
Yeah, I need to, yeah.
Get that kid on the road.
Imagine how cool it would be just to have a book just that someone could buy. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like writing an album, like if you're a musician, just have one. If you do it once, that's like a cool thing that would always be there. And I know that I've got my draft. It's ridiculously long. Like I spent hours and hours on it. I would refine it to make it shorter to a specific topic or period of time. It's non-fiction, but I need to get it done. Yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah, we have to talk about that. Get you back in your power writer status. And you know, a podcaster I had an interview with a few weeks ago. He had such a funny idea. He's a writer himself.
Yeah.
And he said he offered workshops how to write the worst book of your life. He did that because, as you just said, then it is out. So people have the feeling, I just write it now, then it's out. That's my first book. The second one I can make better.
Yes. Yeah.
All those thoughts were gone. They just writing. Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. When you travel a lot, like we have, and podcasting, actually, that'd be my second book, because there's a lot I've learned from podcasting. But pre-podcasting, when you travel a lot, there's just so many interesting people you meet, so many interesting stories, what you've seen, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, solo traveling. Everyone's experience when travel is different, and it might offer something to someone who might read it. Personally, I don't think there'd ever be too many travel books like that, because we've all got a unique story. We've all been to places that could be the same, but yeah, different experiences, right? So there's always something going on, something different, something fresh. It might have the same high level subject of backpacking for 6 months, but in that there's like different stories and different stuff. One of the reasons I wrote down all the stuff, because I was afraid I was going to forget it all. So I spent months, writing every morning, looking at Facebook, looking at all the pictures and all the people I've met. I thought if I at least get it down, just write it down, then I know I can't forget it because I can read it again. That's probably the main reason I want to get the book out there. And obviously secondary is people can read it and see if they like it or not. I'm
sure, your stories are unique.
I think so.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is one thing I talk a lot about with young authors. Imagine yourself offering your book to the local library. Right? You go there, there are very nice ladies. They say, hey, I just written my first book. That's what I did at my local library. You know what? I'm writing a book. It started like that. And now I found a publisher. And they said, which one? I said, this one. Oh my God, that's brilliant. So, and then I had my first book presentation there. And I had every book presented in that small library. And every time I present there, I sell up to 20 copies. So at least 20 people then read especially your book because they saw you at the presentation.
Yeah.
For them, it is special. They want your signature in it. They want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And this is what makes it so special then and different than other traveling stories in your case. I highly believe in that power of local. I mean, it's global nowadays, and that's wonderful and good, but still we are in our local community, where we find our fans, our friends, and of course I always have copies with me when I'm traveling, and then people sometimes they are proud. They say, "Oh, I met that author. I could buy the book over there."
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I would react like that.
Yeah. I just carry stickers around with me, my podcast stickers.
Yeah.
People even love that. I gave loads away in Greece. That was great. Okay, that's great advice. I will need to personally sort it out and plan what to do next. That probably will be a message to you offline to see what I can do next.
Absolutely.
And I'll check out your webinar. We're going to quickly touch on you're a laughter coach. Is that right?
Yeah, I am. Certified laughter yoga trainer.
Okay, we're going to touch on that before we get to the travel questions at the end. So, a certified yoga laughter trainer.
Yes.
What is that?
Laughter yoga is a technique that was developed in India by a doctor.
Yeah.
And he found out that, that laughing is healthy. We all know that. That's not new knowledge.
Yeah.
But he found out that if you just walk to the park, and that's what he did, and you start laughing there, people will start laughing as well, even if nothing's funny, because laughing is like a virus, right? So he then developed several techniques on how to do that in groups. And in the meantime, there are laughter yoga clubs in over 35 countries all over the world.
Yeah.
So you come together there, and that's what the laughter yoga trainer does then, that you give the people who join several exercises on how to laugh, to start laughing. Because you know that kids, when they are tiny, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years old, they laugh up to 400 times a day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They giggle around, like
Yeah.
everything's funny. And can you imagine how often a normal adult laughs per day?
Yeah, not a lot.
15 times.
Oh, wow. That's
Comparing to 400. So laughing, it brings more oxygen into your body, right? It raises your hormone level. You get happier when you're laughing. Not you laugh more because you are happy. It's the other way around. You can initialize it.
Yeah.
And that's what laughter yoga is all about. So you start there with the tiny exercises. For example, you make people walk around in the room, and every time they meet another person directly, they have to just giggle, like, like whatever. So first of all, they're all like, oh, what's this? And a bit shy, but after 5-6 minutes, you have a whole room of giggling persons. And then you give exercises for breathing. It's all about breathing as well, and laughing. Laughing is very exhausting. So in between, you have to do deep breath work. Otherwise, you just drop down unconscious after a while. And those exercises might be, for example, you can invent them, but in the laughter yoga training, you get many tools you can use as a trainer. Then my famous one is the cocktail mixing. I love it.
Oh,
so
wow.
you see, you take the cocktail glasses, and you see,
shake them up, and
you have the small thingy where you get the liquor in, and you mix it, and then you mix it. You mix it all together, and so you do different sounds of laughing then, and people will join. There's no chance not doing that. Yeah.
Okay.
For back home, I always tell my students, when you go back home and you are kind of shy and don't want to laugh out loud, because I do that. I have a laughter buddy, and she calls me, or I call her once a week, and we pick up and just laugh for a minute. And then we say, have a nice day, and bye-bye. And that was it. And so if somebody's watching that, they say, oh my God, the crazy neighbor again.
Crazy.
If people are shy about that, I tell them, hey, why don't you put a smiley on your mirror in the bathroom? And every time you see it, you just smile back. Because that helps already. Your brain thinks the moment you smile that you are happy. It sends you all the nice stuff, so you can make yourself happy. With laughter, it's of course much better, and your brain it doesn't know if you make it up or it's real. If you start like, your brain thinks you are so amused. And off goes that fireworks of wonderful things that your brain is able to send to your body. If you really laugh, it's the same. So you can initialize your own happiness by laughing. And if you have problems with that because you feel uncomfortable, then watch a funny YouTube video, for example. And if you have something like that, then do it again. Repeat it. It lifts your energy and life level and makes you happier.
Yeah, it's very interesting that, because I always have like a very, very good day after they're doing like a podcast, and it'd be like this morning for me, because I've laughed a lot. I've learned some stuff. I've met someone new. That's always a good feeling. There's never a bad feeling at all, ever. And that's why people should probably podcast a bit more and tell stories, because they're funny and stuff like that. But what's interesting on the flip side is the day after, I could be like just working from home. Because of COVID now and people work at home more, you don't interact in person hardly at all now, apart from the one day a week that I go in. So actually laughter is probably even more less now, because you don't actually interact as much with your colleagues as you did before COVID, because now you just can sit there on your laptop, hide away, headphones on. I mean, that's it. Like there's no interaction as much as there used to be. So that's quite an interesting dynamic. I mean, I dread to think if I didn't have the podcast, I mean, how much less laughter there'd be as well. Like there'd be even way down low, you know? So yeah, it's key, I think, for life and your mindset, like I say, to laugh. And I think that comes with human interactions as well, right? Like you say, your friend rings you up and you laugh for a minute, but if you don't have people or much connection during the week, that can't be good, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems. COVID changed so much with that. Especially if you're doing Zoom meetings, right, with your office.
Yeah.
Normally, if you have office meetings, you meet before the meeting.
Yes.
And then you do some chitty-chatty and laugh a bit, and then you go inside and have the meeting and go outside, and then you talk about each other. And that you cannot do that on Zoom because you are in there. And that's a part of social life which really is missing, and people suffer.
Yeah.
The most important thing is to make them aware that it is like that. Many people are not getting it. And I understand. They think something's missing, but what? It's so cozy back home. What? Why not? I'm working on my own back home for 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that I'm a kind of a nomad person, so I'm very happy with myself, but nevertheless, I realized that you need that social interaction on a very like friendship level, right? A person you know a bit, like a colleague at work. You can laugh a bit, go back home, you never meet outside of the office, but there is someone, right?
Yeah.
So that is a part you have to establish on a new level nowadays.
Yeah, it's a huge subject, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, absolutely.
It's weird because I think people probably don't realize that's a thing. COVID happened, work from home, what's the word? There are positives to that.
Yeah.
But I think one of the negatives that maybe wasn't appreciated was the lack of interaction. And like you say, the laughing interaction, the chit chat, that probably was not appreciated enough, I don't think.
Yeah. One has to find now new ideas for that. So
yeah.
I do several Zoom meetings per week for or with people where we don't have a real huge topic, but just to get back to that social life we once had, which we cannot do in person yet because some people are not in the traveling mode again. And during that, I have to admit, during that lockdown situation, I met so many people from all over the world, from Australia to Canada. And here, of course, we cannot meet in person.
True.
Tomorrow, we won't have to plan that.
Yes.
And so you have to find other solutions. So you met on a business level, now you have to find that other level again. Or reinvent something.
Yeah, I guess that's why like different podcasts are quite unique, because the travel podcast, you are going to speak to someone you very rarely in the same town or city, right? They are going to be worldwide. You met someone traveling, like you're in Austria, you connect different people. Whereas a lot of podcasts, they get together, like, don't they, like 2 or 3 people in the studio, and they do the podcast. There's the interaction there. But I think travel podcasts would never be like that. Mostly, there's some that are. It's interesting because as a travel podcast, you've got to travel to do your podcast, right? You can't do a travel podcast without traveling.
No.
Maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe you can travel through social media. I'm not sure. That might be quite a good podcast idea, actually. The travel through social media, see what it's like. But yeah, you don't have to be out there if you're like a mindset podcast or a science podcast. That's not the premise of the podcast. Travel podcasts are a bit different, where I need to go to Greece and I want to go to Greece and check it out, but I need to go there and obviously tell the listeners what I've learned, and what you can do there. So yeah, a bit different. But anyway, Romana, where can people find you if they want advice on laughter, on how to write books? Is there a website that people can find you at? And is there social media too?
On social media, you can find me on Facebook with the name Romana Hasenoehrl, or you can find me on my Facebook group, Happiness Reloaded. That group, I founded during the first lockdown, and it's got over 700 members now who are all interested in like daily interaction about humor, having fun, uplifting quotes, sharing music. So everything which like makes your soul happy. That's Happiness Reloaded. And I will leave my address for the free webinar. It's free, by the way. So it's every first Tuesday per month. And people can just sign in. They get the Zoom link, and then they meet there with people from all over the world. So I have many Canadians in the webinars at the moment. That's why I do it at a Canada okay time. It's 11 a.m. EST. It's doable for people in Canada as well.
Website as well?
Websites. Oh God, I have so many. Bullireisen.eu, that is my travel page, but it's in German language only.
Okay.
So I will leave the writing websites, put them in the description of the podcast, and then they can hop there and
that's great.
Even book a free call with me if you want to talk about your book. Just, some people just want to talk about it and they don't know yet where will it lead me. And then we talk for 20 minutes and find out.
That's great. Awesome. Yeah, I'll put the links in the show notes so people can access all that, and I'll grab them from you after the show. We're going to finish the episode with some quickfire travel questions / must-have features. So I normally finish a podcast by firing off some questions, and normally like your favorite travel stuff. The travel questions are random and they're not listed on the notes, so you might get some random questions, but I do have some listed there as well that you have prepared. So my first question is going to be, hey, just a quick one. I just want to say there are many ways to support this podcast. You can buy me a coffee and help support the podcast with $5, or you can go to my merch store with the affiliate link with TeePublic, where there's plenty of merch available to buy, such as t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, and also some children's clothing. Thirdly, which is free, you can also rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or Good Pods. Also, you can find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Simply just search for Winging It Travel Podcast, and you'll find me displaying all my social media content for traveling, podcast, and other stuff. Thank you. It's travel question time. How many countries have you traveled to?
Oh! Oh my God, I have to start counting. I don't recount them all, but I think it's about 25 countries. So there are many, many, many countries left. I've not visited South America yet, for example. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Just Mexico, but that was that classical day trip from Los Angeles.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, crikey. So 25 countries, that's a decent amount. And of those 25 countries, can you tell me 3 of your favorites?
Yeah, that's Greece, Italy, and Thailand.
Nice. Okay. And 3 countries that you've not traveled to that you'd love to travel to next?
Australia.
Yeah.
Love to go there. And I don't count that as one country, but I love to do the Panamericana from Ushuaia, the whole way up to Fairbanks, Alaska. So I like to travel South America on that way.
Okay. And what about one country that you would love to live in for a year?
In Greece.
Greece, okay.
Yeah.
Would you have a specific area in Greece?
Yeah, there is the Peloponnese. There are 5 fingers on the south coast.
Yeah.
And there are, on each and every finger, there are many tiny villages. It can be any of them, but down there It has to be.
That's a great little region down there that I went to.
Yeah.
I loved Nafplio. That was
Oh.
awesome. Okay. What about 2 books you would take with you? One could be a favorite book and one could be a current book.
My favorite book is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
And I have many of them. At the moment, I'm rereading it the 20th time, and I have that golden. It's in a golden cover, and
Yeah.
it says, "Of course, don't panic." Yeah, that's what I really love. Current book which I like. I mean, I'm reading that at the moment. The draft I'm reading at the moment, it's the story of Mark O. I really like it.
Okay.
As soon as it's printed, I will recommend it.
Lovely. Okay. And in your backpack, what is one piece of clothing that you would just have to pack for any country, any trip?
Yeah, always a pair of jeans. And I always just bring one pair of jeans.
Just one?
Yeah, because that's enough.
I agree. I'm taking one pair of jeans for my trip. Don't need any more. Okay. What about one generic must-have item? So it can't be a phone or laptop.
In my case, it's the toolbox for the car.
Ah, yeah, of course.
And a towel, if you've read The Hitchhiker.
Okay. I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
But you are British. You have to.
Do you want to hear a shocking fact about me? Is that I don't read fiction.
Oh my God.
Only non-fiction. Yeah. There's a fact for you that my sister was not very happy with at Christmas. Okay. One city in the world that you'd love to drink a coffee and watch the world go by.
I have to make a decision now. Then it would be Bangkok. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great shout. Yeah. Okay. And do you have a country's favorite coffee, like how it tastes? If you had to go to one country just to drink the coffee of how it tastes, where would you go?
To Italy.
Yeah, Italy. It's a very popular answer.
Yeah. So where I'm living here in Tyrolia, I'm really on the edge of Austria. So if I get into my car, it's 10 minutes ride and I'm in Italy. And I go for a coffee there.
That itself is unreal.
Because I don't know why, but the coffee there is better. You cross the border and it's better. I don't know why.
They're like Canadians and Americans listening right now going, that is amazing that you can just go 10 minutes over the border to Italy and go and get a coffee. Insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is here. I mean, Tyrolia is on the border. And I'm here in a little valley, which is at the end of the world, as we call it. And
wow.
And on the other side of the end is Italy.
Okay. What about 3 favorite international cuisines, foods that you love to eat?
Yeah, the Mediterranean, Italian kitchen. I love Thai kitchen and the Indian cuisine.
Yeah, you're fairly similar to me there. Okay. Yeah. What about one road that you traveled on in your camper van that was just breathtaking?
There is a national park called Bardenas Reales, and it's on the Spanish-France border. There's one road for cars through the national park, and if you drive there, it's a stone road, so not...
Oh, okay. Not paved. No.
Not paved, but you don't need a four-wheel drive. You can do it with a normal car. And you get into that national park and all of a sudden it looks as if you would be in Arizona. It's like those, wow. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's desert and red stone and those mountains, everything's dry. Oh. And you just ride on the gravy road and it goes like bump, 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 bump. And that was amazing.
Okay. Next question would be, what about a favorite landmark that you've seen? Can be nature or man-made.
What fascinated me most when I was there was in John O'Groats, when it says
Yeah.
northernmost point of Scotland, which
Yeah.
is not true. It's not John O'Groats. I really love that.
Okay.
That's another part of British Island where I have to go when I'm there. I've been there several times.
Oh, okay.
It's so windy up
Never
there.
been.
I remember once I just couldn't close the door of the car.
Yeah.
I couldn't because the wind was so strong.
Bloody hell. Crikey. A favourite beach that you've been to?
Wow, yeah. That is at the Atlantic Ocean in France, Landeda, in Bretagne. Okay. They have this phenomena that if the tide is low, you can walk for miles to some tiny islands, and it's all white sand beach.
Oh, wow.
Newborn within the last 2 hours. And then the tide comes back and everything's gone. And those islands they seem to be so far away and you have to swim there. But 12 hours later, the whole beach is newborn again.
Oh, okay.
That's amazing.
That's unreal. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. What about a country that you travel to that has been the best value for money?
I think that it was Albania.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I had a few people say that before. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think right now it definitely is, right? Before people start realizing and traveling there a lot, I think right now it's a good time to go.
It is, because in Albania it is now as it was in Greece 50 years ago. You have that charming situations with like pigs crossing the road and all the farm animals are still free. No one is on this industrial mode already. They're selling watermelons next to the road and it's charming. One should visit it now.
Good tip. So I'm going to finish the episode with one final question, which is, can you give someone some words of advice or wisdom as to why they should go travel, even solo traveling by themselves? Why should someone make the leap and go away?
It fulfills your heart. It opens your heart. And that's why one should do that.
Wow. To the point. Love that. Okay. So Romana, thanks for coming on to the podcast. It's been a great chat. I've learned a lot actually on some random subjects and it's been great. I've laughed a lot, which is key. And also I've learned about how you travel and some of your travel history, which has been really inspiring. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to my Winging It Travel podcast episode today. You can find me on Instagram at James Hammond Travel or Winging It Travel Podcast. You can search for both. I release weekly clips of this podcast episode, as well as photos from the last 8 to 10 years of my travels. You can also follow me on TikTok, Facebook and Pinterest by searching Winging It Travel Podcast. I do release daily content to do with travel and the podcast throughout the week. Also check out my website, jameshammond.org. There's content about myself, my travels, and there's also a newsletter sign up as well as a contact form. Finally, please rate and review the podcast on Podchaser. This is my platform of choice. Alternatively, you can rate this on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts from. This really helps the podcast gain a bit of traction for the future in terms of guests and content. And I'm glad to see that you guys are listening out there, reviewing it and enjoying the content so far. Stay safe, stay humble, keep listening, keep traveling, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers, James.